Music, dance, theater. It's time to take a seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez. Hear from performers, producers, presenters, and creators who enrich our lives in the performing arts. Who's on stage? Here is Tom Alvarez to introduce you.
Welcome to On the Aisle with yours truly, Tom Alvarez, and thank you for listening. The music you are hearing is played by Daniel Duarte, lecturer in music and guitar at the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music. He is an active guitarist, arranger, conductor, and lecturer who has collected prizes in several guitar and chamber music competitions in the United States, Europe, and Latin America. Duarte is also a multi-instrumentalist who performs on different types of guitars and as a flautist. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me, Tom.
I know. It took a while for us to get here, right?
It's really a pleasure. It's a pleasure to see you and to speak with you again.
Oh, my pleasure. When we met at a concert where you played. It was the first time I've heard you, laid eyes on you, and once we had a chance to finally meet in person, I told you how I discovered Brazil when I was in college and watched a classic movie called Black Orpheus. And then shortly after that, I discovered Jobim and Astrid Gilberto and that very famous album tailored to Americans. But, from that moment on, I just fell in love with Brazilian music and culture, and I have stayed entranced by it ever since. So hearing you and your colleague Bruno Sandes, and we'll talk about Bruno as well later. Yeah. I was just enchanted by the concert, and then getting to meet you is such a thrill. What is your background?
Well, as you started with talking about Brazil a little bit, let's start there. Yeah, I'm originally from Brazil, from São Paulo in there. And I started playing guitar there. My first love in music was exactly that type of repertoire you saw in that concert. So playing traditional Brazilian music like Jobim and other composers like Villa-Lobos and many others, Pixinguinha. There's so many, the list could go on, but that's what brought me to music, like really enjoying it, like listening to that type of repertoire. And early on in life, I started playing the guitar, and at home with my father, who also played a little of the instrument and sang. Very musical family that I came from. Everybody had to play an instrument. So I decided to pick the guitar and been doing that since then.
Describe Brazil.
Well, Brazil is a really wonderful country, in my opinion. It's a country where, similarly to America, it really welcomes immigrants from all over the world. So it's a country where you have a great diversity that is reflected in music, especially, I would say. And in Brazil, I think from all countries I have visited in my life, Brazil is like the most friendly you will find. No matter where you come from, I feel that everybody will welcome you, and it's really with open arms. And in opposition to other countries where we go as a foreigner and people really want you to speak the language, Brazilians will actually go out of their way to try to speak your language and welcome you. So it's a country that, well, the portrait we see of Brazil in movies and TV is sometimes different ends of the spectrum, right? Sometimes you see the beaches, the nature, the environment, the beauty of the country. Sometimes you see also like the violence. You pick a movie like, I don't know, City of God, where you see, that type of portrait of the country. And both can be true. I think somewhere in the middle, I'll describe as a very friendly, welcoming, beautiful country.
I think it goes without saying, though, but do you miss it?
I do miss it. Sometimes, of course, my whole family is still in Brazil. I've been living in the U.S. since 2007. Uninterruptedly. So sometimes, yes, sometimes I do miss that. Luckily, with music, I play a lot of Brazilian music, so that always kind of bring me back.
Mm-hmm. How often do you return?
I try to go twice a year, at least, to see family and friends, or sometimes to teach and perform there as well. So I try to stay connected with the place and with the people.
You know, as I mentioned earlier, the concert that I was referring to was on October the 14th. And, you know, if you want to read the review, you can catch it on my tomalvarez.studio website. And I encourage you to do that because I believe it was glowing. I had a lot to say about it that it really touched my heart. It was called Mood Indigo, Bossa Nova Concert. Describe the concert.
That concert was so special because I was doing that with two great friends. So Eric Stark, director of the Indianapolis Symphony Choir, who put everything together, and also Bruno Sandis, dear friend of mine as well. In that concert, we performed a lot of bossa nova. So the focus of the concert was in that time period, that part of Brazilian repertoire. We did some instrumentals. We also did many famous songs from the girl from Ipanema to other more unknown bossas that came from Jobim, João Gilberto. We also played Ari Barroso, like Aquarela do Brasil, or just it's called Brazil. And we tried to give a tour of that time period through that repertoire. And what was nice about the concert is that me and Bruno were like the guest artists, but you know, the amazing Indianapolis Symphonic Choir, over 100 voices singing that type of repertoire is quite unusual, I would say. So it was a very unique sound that we're able to create with that concert, because usually the bossa nova, you know, there is like a very minimalistic style. It was born as Rio de Janeiro was becoming a vertical city, and you know, musicians were inside playing the guitar by themselves. So that's how, you know, a lot of the songs that became well known, they're like guitar and voice. That's it. So doing that like with a bigger ensemble was something very nice and unique.
And of course, the fact that Eric Stark, Dr. Stark, his husband is from Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
He had an affinity for the music anyway. Do you not agree?
Exactly. And Eric, he speaks perfect Portuguese, you know. So it was very nice to actually work with someone here that not only understands the music, but the culture and the language as well. And Drico, his husband, was quite excited about the concert as well.
And speaking of the choir itself, the fact that they sang in Portuguese, I know that Bruno indicated that was really, really unique, correct?
Very unique. Having over 100 voices. Yeah. Doing that in Portuguese and clear Portuguese. They were super well prepared for the concert. So,
how were their accents, did you feel?
I think they were better than mine.
So it really was groundbreaking, that concert.
It was. It was
a musical
unique.
cavalcade and sort of a tour of the country. And I know it really put me there because it was kind of a dark, cold night. And, you know, it made me feel warm and like I was on the beaches in Rio. You know, I think I also mentioned to you my personal connection to your country. My brother was in the Foreign Service and a cultural affairs officer, and his job with the U.S. was to bring cultural acts to Brazil. So he also introduced me to the language and the culture and letters at the time. And of course, the samba, you know.
Yes.
The samba. What is samba and what does all that represent?
So samba is really important part of the culture in Brazil. Is, you know, technically speaking, is a rhythm, is a dance. What is great about the samba and all the variants that came after the samba, because the samba is really where everything began in terms of Brazilian national music, right? So because it is a style that incorporates African drumming, you know, and then step by step we start to introduce other instruments like guitars, you know, like we use in that concert I played that small little guitar from Brazil. It's called cavaquinho, which is a Portuguese guitar from the 16th century that was step by step introduced into the samba as well. So it's really a mixture of the samba, the African percussion rhythms, and with that little tiny guitar, and then step by step also incorporating voices and other instruments. It became more modernized. The carnival in Brazil is based around the samba. Everybody's dancing the samba. Of course, as time went by, other Brazilian rhythms were incorporated into the carnival party, which is happening very soon.
And you know what has always impressed me about that? Like our country and many countries, it's you know, there are the haves and the have-nots. The disparity is present, and yet that carnival, that music, that cultural experience brings everyone together, right? All the races, all the classes. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. It's a party for everybody. It happens in different venues. It can be in clubs or on the street, and it brings people together. Sometimes
there's a little criticism about all of the funding it takes to those elaborate costumes and all of that. But you know, when it comes right down to it, it makes the people happy, does it not?
Yes. The year in Brazil only starts after the carnival. After, so middle of February is something that the whole country is deeply invested in. You know, it's a celebration of life and of the new year as well. And you know, in its origin, also the religious portion of it that played part in that. And yeah, the whole country is invested in that. I don't know of a single region of the country that doesn't buy in the carnival.
So tell me, how is it that you ended up in Bloomington, Indiana?
Yeah, so I was in Brazil finishing my undergraduate degree. And then 3 weeks later, I got a scholarship to come and study in the U.S. So that took me to Boston first. So I went to Boston, did my master's degree there, spent about 2 years working on that degree. And then...
And where was that? Where did you go to school?
Boston Conservatory, which nowadays is called Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. It was incorporated into
That's one of the top schools.
Yeah. It was
right up there.
Was a fantastic experience.
Right up there with the Juilliard and Eastman and IU Jacobs School of Music. Right.
Yeah. So that's how I came here. So I stayed in Boston. And then during that period of time, I decided to, I was performing a lot and traveling right after the end of that degree. And during those 9 months, I was really traveling all over the place to perform. I felt like I not only wanted to do that, but also to teach. So teaching was something that I really wanted to pursue. So I was like, I'm going to go ahead and try to get a doctorate in music. So that's going to be the next step into this plan of also teaching. And then I applied to Indiana University, came here to Bloomington to do my doctorate. I believe that was, many years ago. I don't remember exactly when, but so I pursued my doctorate in Bloomington. And after I finished my doctorate, a position opened up there. And I ended up staying to teach right away, and I'm still there.
Describe your position.
Yeah, so I am a lecturer in music. So I'm a faculty in the Jacobs School of Music. And I teach studio guitar. So I have my individual students from undergraduates to doctoral students. They're pursuing their degrees. I also direct the Jacob's Guitar Ensemble, which is a very unique ensemble formed by 12 of the top guitarists that we have at the school. And we play not only classical guitar, but all types of guitars as well. So we can have played Latin American music, where, of course, guitar music is so prominent, but also like electric counterpoint by Steve Reich with 12 electric guitars. So really exploring the ensemble music for the guitar, which is something fairly new. And then I also teach different courses, from arranging to Latin guitar, and some also like lecturing guitar history. So a little bit for everything.
Do you touch upon jazz and blues as well?
No, we have a special faculty member that does that.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So some may think it's a best kept secret, but in that I cover the performing arts, from my viewpoint, I know quite well that Jacobs is renowned around the world. So I've always been really interested from someone on the inside. Describe the reputation and the culture of Jacobs School of Music.
Yeah, it is. Jacobs School of Music has been for many decades now one of the top music schools in the world. And what makes it very unique is that it's like a research university. It's a big university, IU, that has this school of music that is like a conservatory in a way. So the students have access to any tools that they need to complete their studies, their degrees. And the Jacobs School of Music provides so many opportunities. Like if you look at the opera productions that happen at the Jacobs School of Music, like there's no other school in the world that has that type of production that is compared to like the Metropolitan Opera sometimes, the ballet, the jazz departments, the orchestras, everything that is happening at Jacobs School of Music is really high level, and the amount of things happening on campus as well is incredible. It's nonstop. It's concert after concert after concert after concert. You could spend your whole day there attending incredible events from all instruments, from all departments, and the faculty as well. Like my colleagues are amazing. Some of the best musicians in the world that end up going there and teaching our students.
Well, I asked you to bring your guitar, and you gratefully agreed to do so. And of course, we heard a bit of it on the open of the show. But since you've got it sitting right by you, why don't you play something for me? How about, first of all, a sample of what we heard at the concert last fall? Did you do that?
Sounds good. Yeah. I could play. I think we did Água de Beber by Jobim.
Okay.
And that concert, I can play a little bit of that for you.
All right. Let's take a listen. So would you say you have a passion for teaching?
I do. Yes. I really love teaching. Being with the students and witnessing their growth as musicians, something that gives me like incredible amount of joy. Like I'm always so proud of like every little step that they take in their progression towards their goals. And it's something that I really love. And I really enjoy like the routine of sitting down with the students and working on helping them. That's a feeling that I don't know. I always really enjoy doing it. And yes, so I do have a passion for teaching, and it's really a fundamental part of my life.
What are your students like?
They have a little bit of there's a very diverse group of students. I would say students from different cultures and countries.
Any from Brazil?
I have a student from Brazil actually right now. I have a graduate student from Brazil right now.
Did he come there because of you?
Well, we try to recruit the best students,
Yes.
and yeah. So sometimes students from Brazil, they are looking to continue their studies with someone like myself who specializes in that type of music, and they want to come here for that.
I'm sure you take all your students under your wing, but do you give special attention to
No.
students?
No, I try to teach all of them and give the exact amount of attention to all of them, really.
Do you have a teaching method or methods that you use?
Absolutely.
And how would you describe them?
Absolutely. As you were like myself during my doctorate, you start learning about different techniques and approaches to teach. And you have this toolbox full of, concepts there, but then each student will require you to use a different teaching tool for them. Some students will react really, really well to a very specific and precise plan towards a goal. Some students are more proactive in a way, and you don't need to really worry about how they're going to get there, but just like with the mechanics of making their plan work. Also, sometimes we have students that are ideal students that simply by saying one little thing will create a sparkle there that will help them towards their goals. Certain students will have to really hold their hands and be like, okay, let's do this step by step, and be very methodical about how to get to their final goal you have. So yeah, we learn different techniques of how to teach, and each student requires a very different. That's what I believe, that you have to tailor your teaching style to each student to help them. Because if you only have one single way of teaching, probably it's not going to work with every single student. And of course, you want to have a success rate that is for everyone that is studying with you.
If you could break it down into percentages, do you have any sense of the students and the goals that you speak of? How many of them want to just do education? How many want to perform? How many want to do what you do, perform and be educators? Yeah,
we have a variety of goals, of course, and I don't have like the exact numbers, but I would say that a lot of our students, especially like the doctoral students, they go out to teach. So they will teach in a university, in a conservatory, or they're going to open their like own school of music. That has happened in the past. We had students that want to be performers. So they want to go out and play concerts and do recordings or become producers. And students sometimes that also want to do music like for their undergrad because they are very passionate and they want to develop those skills. And then they also end up going to arts administration or to other careers as well. That, they'll go to grad school later for something else. Mm-hmm. So it's really a variety. And some students, they don't know what they want. And they end up finding out.
Sounds like me.
during the course of their time at school. And they find themselves doing something very unexpected. Like I remember recently I had a student who was not sure what he wanted to do during his undergraduate years, but before he finished, he had a publishing deal for the music he was writing. So he moved to LA, and
I relate to this so much because I studied theater and I ended up in broadcasting. Of course, they're related, but I can always revisit it as a writer and in various other ways. But tell me about, do you keep track of your former students?
I try to be in touch with them and check on how they're doing. And they also are very proactive about, coming back to Bloomington for homecoming or an event, and then we end up like getting coffee and talking. But I try to proactively check on them and make sure that everything is
And
going
what does
well.
it feel like when you see some of your students who've gone on, and have there been many who've gone on to become big names, if you will?
Yeah. I mean, you feel proud and old.
Drop some names.
Proud and old at the same time. So the most recent of those...
Give me some examples of some of your students who've gone on and where have they performed and that sort of thing.
Very recently, right now, I was like watching the Grammys 2 nights ago, and I had one of my students running for a Grammy as a producer of one of the albums there. And he's a student that came from Indiana. Alex Goldblatt is his name. And he was undergrad student that I had that was doing so well, for example.
Did you know back then that he would have the career he has?
I always knew that he was very, very talented, and he's still very young, but doing amazing things. And it was one of those things that he didn't have a major at first, and then he declared a major in music and in guitar, and one thing led to the other, really. So he's, doing very well. So that's the first one came to my mind because I was watching the Grammys and his name dropped there. So of course.
Did you watch the Grammys, the whole program?
A little bit.
What did you think of it?
I thought it was like some incredible things there. I know that especially in classical music and instrumental music, it was very good to see some friends up there running or winning sometimes. So I watched a little bit. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a big fan of this type of shows. I don't
right.
But the little bit I watched
well, of course, you were considered Latino. So how do you feel about the Latino participation in the music industry now, and more exposure aside from the quote Latin grammars?
Yeah,
a lot of crossover.
It feels like it's opening up more and more over the years. It's still like, for example, in my universe of higher education, it's very minimal representation. Is still
interesting
from faculty and students sometimes as well, in terms of like the percentage of like faculty members and they're Latino in educational institutions. But it's a step by step improving and getting more open. And
do you feel that's part of the groundswell that of course Black Lives Matter opened the door for many marginalized people? It's just the whole effort to change public consciousness, social consciousness seems to, but the arts have always been in the vanguard in some ways. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think, after Black Lives Matter and everything, a lot of institutions genuinely started looking at the issue. A lot of institutions went on an apology tour as well for a little bit and then dropped the ball again. So what we want to see, of course, in this type of conversation, seeing constant growth towards more representation. Of course, not a little bit here, a little bit there, and then that's done.
Let's talk about your career, your own career outside of school. Tell me about your career. Do you tour? Do you record?
Yeah. So I've been always in my life like trying to do both. So teaching and performing. Before the pandemic, I was touring mostly with my colleague from IU, Petr Jankovic, playing in a duo, 2 guitars. So we went all over the country and abroad as well, playing concerts with that project. I feel that since the pandemic, doing much less of that, because sometimes end up teaching more and performing less. Sometimes we're performing more and teaching less. It's kind of like a cycle. After the pandemic, I would say that I was really focused on more of the teaching portion of it, and but I still tour and perform with different projects. We're actually preparing now an album with that project again with Petar Jankovic of 2 guitars, and I'm also preparing a solo album in the summer. But then after these projects are complete, go back.
And
again.
what's in the solo album?
Solo album is only Brazilian music. Yeah, so it's only Brazilian music. There's music from Sérgio Assad. There's some original music that was written for me by different composers from Brazil that I'm working on and going to be recording very soon. There's some Jobim as well, of course. It's all Brazilian guitar music in it.
Do you ever? I'm just curious. We're gonna talk about classical guitar here, but have you spent much time performing in España?
I have been to Spain and I have performed there in the past. And the former chair of the guitar department, Ernesto Bitetti, he retired and he lives in Madrid. So we have that connection there. One of the great guitarists of the 20th century. But he's originally from Argentina, but retired there and has been living in Madrid for decades. He was in Bloomington and Madrid as well. So yeah, I have, and I always really enjoyed playing Spanish music.
Have you ever accompanied flamenco dancers?
I have actually. I have done that in the past. I'm not a flamenco player per se, but I do know the techniques and I can find my way around flamenco music as well. So I have played with flamenco dancers and singers as well.
And for those who aren't educated, like me, not completely, describe the classical guitar repertoire.
Classical guitar repertoire, it's something that is, of course, it has a long tradition of many centuries. But the guitar, as we know today, with 6 strings and the size we have, is not a very old instrument. You know, Antonio Torres is a Spanish guitar maker. He started to make guitars the way we know today. And that became popularized early on in the 20th century and beyond. Was the Spanish player Andrés Segovia, who made the guitar popular, the classical guitar popular around the world for the masses in a way. He was, he played in the White House. He was in the cover of the New York Times. Was probably the first guitarist to do so. And he created like a whole aura around the instruments and a new repertoire that we still play today. He was asking composers to write original music, but also relying on transcriptions, like from piano music by Itzhak Albéniz. And even if you go back in time, you look at transcriptions from Bach and other classical composers played on the guitar to show that the guitar has that capability of playing all types of repertoire, because one of the stigmas that the guitar encountered over the centuries was just an instrument to accompany the voice or for strumming chords. And with the modern guitar, we're able to perform all sorts of repertoire. So the classical guitar repertoire, you can look for these really classics that came from centuries ago. We look at Fernando Sor, Mauro Giuliani, composers that were in Italy, in Spain, in France, and then you have this original music written. Then you also have the transcriptions from other instruments. Like as guitarists, we play Bach violin pieces on the guitar or cello pieces on the guitar. And then you have the more modern original repertoire written for the guitars we know today. The guitar with 6 strings with this regular size we have. So it's a very versatile instrument. The repertoire as well in the Americas, from the Americas, right? So from South, Central, and North America is really rich, especially at the end of the 19th century and until today. That's the bulk of the repertoire really comes from there.
And so while you're here with me still, and you still have your guitar, would you like to play me something from that repertoire?
Yeah, I can play something for you. Like I'll play one of these transcriptions that I mentioned from Spanish music. So this is a piece by Itzhak Albeniz, and I'll play the introduction of that piece for you here now, Tom. It's called Humores de la Calleta. It's originally written for piano, but as you see, it translates very well for
and what does
for
that
the
mean?
guitar.
That title?
It's rumors, like sounds from like the alleys. So it's like basically trying to show, like, as you were walking around in Spain, you're hearing the sound of guitars in the background.
Okay, let's listen.
Yeah.
You know, I often wonder if it's in my blood, my Spanish blood. But of course, it was played, you know, in Mexico, and it's part of the culture there as well, all Latin American countries. So I always have a visceral kind of reaction to it. Do other people describe it that way too? The guitar, not just Latinos, but in general.
Yeah, I would say
and
so.
Why is that?
I think the guitar is certainly like the most popular instrument in the world. And like, how many people you know that play the guitar? You know, they can pick up a guitar and play a few chords here and there for fun. The guitar has that, it is an accessible instrument, right? So it's a guitar instrument that is not the most expensive. You don't need thousands of dollars to buy a guitar. You can go literally to Target and pick up an instrument for a very reasonable price and start trying to play. But the mechanics of the instrument, what I think we're referring to is like how intimate the guitar is. It's an instrument that is not too loud. It has a very pleasant sound and is accessible. And that makes, it just makes, I don't know, people are always happy to hear the guitar. And also it's part of many different cultures, as you said. So the guitar, if you look historically speaking, is an instrument that, you know, like small little guitars traveled from Europe to Portugal to Africa in the ships, you know. So like the Portuguese brought to Brazil like this small tiny guitar, the cavaquinho, and it's still a popular instrument nowadays because it's tiny and very easy to travel with.
You know, recently I interviewed Austin Huntington, the cellist for the symphony, and I asked him the same question: what is it about the sound of the cello that attracts so many? And you know, he said, well, it really replicates the human voice. And doesn't the guitar also replicate singing?
It can. The guitar is you know, as the cello, of course, has its
sounds
is the melodic nature of the instrument. The guitar is melodic and harmonic at the same time. You can recreate sounds of the human voice on the guitar. You can create sounds, percussive sounds of the guitar. You can create sounds of birds on the guitar. You can create like pretty much any sound. The guitar can make any sound, and that's the beauty of the instruments.
What drew you to it when you were that little boy? And how old were you?
I was around 9 years old. What drew me to it was how intimate it was and how pleasant to hear it was. Like just the sound of like an arpeggio on the guitar, like caught my attention. I was immediately hooked by that. I was like, this is a unique sound. And what made also me, I found interesting on the guitar at first, and that's I don't know how I had that realization, but was the fact that on the guitar, you needed both hands to make the sound. There was no medium in between you and the instruments. Because I remember seeing a pianist and you had, like the mechanism between the keys and the player to create the sound, or the flute where you are pressing the keys. The guitar, you have the strings in your hands. You have to kind of create the sound from scratch. And I found that it was like really interesting to try to maneuver that and create like your own sound. So that physical touch also is something that made me intrigued.
So you had mentioned earlier that your family, your immediate family, were musicians, or you grew up with music. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Tell me about them.
Yeah.
Your mom and dad and brothers and sisters.
Yeah. I know that in my family, like going back to like my great grandfather, who moved from Italy to Brazil. He was a musician.
So you're part Italian.
I am, yes.
And Brazilian.
Yes.
But that's not uncommon. That's a country made up of a lot of
it's
folks from Europe.
It's not uncommon, especially Italians in Brazil. I think the biggest population outside of Italy is in Brazil.
Do you speak Italian as well?
Parlo un poco di italiano, sì.
Oh, wow. How many languages do you speak?
I speak Spanish, English, Portuguese, and Italian. Yeah.
Were you surprised when you came to this country and discovered that we're mostly monolingual?
It was a surprise, I would say. I think, like I met people here that speak multiple languages as well.
Well, in Bloomington, you'd certainly find them, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So,
but back to your family.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted.
So this part of my family, they went to Brazil, and my great grandfather, he was a conductor, played piano, and all his sons had like 4 sons, and all of them played.
He conducted whom?
He conducted bands and orchestras in Brazil, and he composed as well. And one of the things that everybody in the family had to play something. So he made a living playing silent movies with his orchestra, live music, and that kind of like spread through the family. So my grandfather, he played the piano. His brothers played the clarinet, the violin.
Did you guys have jam sessions?
Oh yeah. When I was a kid, I was terrified of those because on Sunday evening, everybody would gather around the piano and everybody had to play something. And I was always nervous when I see my dad going up and playing. My dad played the guitar and sang as well. My mom played the flute. My sisters played guitar, piano. So everybody in the family did a little bit of music.
And do you play other instruments as well?
I do. I play the flute.
Okay.
Yeah, I studied the flute pretty seriously.
I said that in my opening, and I referred to it as flautist. Was that incorrect?
You can say that.
Okay.
Yeah. Or flutist, yeah. So everybody in the family played something, and since my grandfather, I don't think nobody was like a professional musician, but everybody enjoyed and loved music. And still today, when I go home, everybody, there's music.
So have you gone back to find your people in Italy?
I have, actually. I have been there. Like? I remember a few years ago, I had a concert in Italy, and after the concert, I had 2 days there, and I had no plan. I remember a conversation with my grandmother, and she told me you should go back to your hometown.
Find out your roots.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I did.
Roots.
I got on a train with no plan. Back then you didn't we didn't really have like cell phones like we have today. Like you put in the map and you go. I just started asking questions and went down to Napoli on a train. I was all the way in Slovenia up there. Took the train all the way down to Napoli and then got on a cab and asked if he could drive me to this little town called Hofrano in Italy. And I went there and woke up the next day, went to the city hall, and I was like, can I have a tour here or something? And then it was like the priest came, the mayor came, everybody was like, oh, this is where where your great grandfather was born, and this and that.
That's so cool.
Did
they lead you to people's houses?
Yeah,
to meet your relatives.
They did. They took me to the church where like my great grandfather was baptized, and this.
I just saw a movie with that whole same plot. I can't think of just recently.
Yeah,
it took place in Italy, and the same thing happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that, and it was really fun to actually do that.
Did you feel that roots experience, getting back in touch with your?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, it was quite special actually. To do that. I am, I always grew up hearing the language and hearing about this town. And
did you grow up with eating multiple cuisines?
Yeah,
Italian.
Brazil is very diverse in terms of cuisine.
Fusion, right?
A lot of fusion, but yeah.
Did you eat feijoada?
I never ate feijoada in my life.
I mispronounced it.
No, you didn't. You did it right. It's called feijoada.
Feijoada.
Yeah. I have never eaten feijoada.
Really?
Because
I thought it was like your national dish.
It is. It is. But I don't like beans, and I'm a vegetarian, so it doesn't work for me.
We have to talk about Carmen Miranda, okay? Yeah. Because you and I at some point had a bit of conversation about Carmen Miranda, and I don't think that people realize who she really was. Mm-hmm. They just have this image of her with the fruit on her head and sort of her comic image. But tell me what you thought about her, think about her.
Well, she was like such an advocate for Brazilian and Latin American music very early on. And she was in a unique spot for being so present in the American media. Like she was in movies and TV shows and was really a pioneer in that sense. She was actually from Portugal. She was born in Portugal, but she, of course, was mostly performing Brazilian music with a perfect Brazilian accent as well. And she sang a very specific repertoire that appealed to the masses. She was very smart in choosing the music she was actually performing. And the musicians that she worked with were absolutely the best as well. One of them was Garoto, who's a phenomenal Brazilian guitarist and composer that influenced a whole generation of musicians like Jobim that came after him. Who were already exploring very modern harmonies, very sophisticated ways of playing the guitar, and creating what we know today is really the Brazilian music, like nationalism in Brazilian music that didn't exist before that period, was really something invented around that time period. So she was incredibly important for the development of a Brazilian music language.
Yeah, and she did open the door for Americans' love of in popular music, of Brazilian music, and the list of American singers is long of those who sang music by Brazilian composers. Who are some of them? Contemporary, by the way, I'm a big fan of Stacey Kent's. Mm-hmm. Do you know Stacey Kent's, the jazz singer?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she records in Brazilian or Portuguese and a lot of Brazilian songs in her repertoire. Are you a fan by any chance?
Yeah, I'm a fan of her, and I'm a fan of like Brazilian music in general. It's something that I carry with me.
Who are some other American singers? I mean, even Sinatra.
Sinatra recorded amazing albums in partnership with Jobim. exposed Brazilian music to the world. Really helped to popularize further the style.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Stan Getz, that seminal recording that I listened to when I was in college, I understand just recently we lost Astrid Gilberto within the last year, I believe.
Yeah, it was very recent.
Yeah. So why are you a musician? Period.
That's a great question. Why am I a musician? Well, for me, music, it was the first thing I was like really interested in my life. I think soccer and music. When I was a kid, I loved playing soccer. I was like, I'm going to be a soccer player. But music kind of gave meaning to my life in a very different way. It was the first thing I was like, I actually want to sit down and do this the whole day. It's like something that I was in a way like addicted to it right away. I was hooked to music as soon as I started. And I was able to really focus on that and enjoy that in a different way that I had not experienced with like anything else in life. And I think when I naturally decided to step by step become like a professional musician, that was like so ingrained in my routine. I never had to I never had someone to tell me like, go practice. Always enjoy that process of preparing something, or to like just really spend time with the instruments and with other musicians as well. Collaboration is something that also always moved me in a different way. Like collaborating with other musicians and creating something with them is something I always enjoyed. So I feel that experience of like instantly enjoying that in a different way was unique to me. Like the desire of focusing on that right away is something I had not had before, like in school with other subjects and anything else. But music, when you start playing, I was like, wow, that's something I love doing. And I think that's what was the driving force behind becoming a professional musician.
Does music obsess you?
Yes. In a way, I would say yes. Because sometimes, you go to bed at night and you're still thinking about something
And my next question was, how does it inform your life? I mean, do you hear music in your head all the time?
A lot of it. Like, yeah, a lot of time, like singing lines and thinking about the mechanics of something I'm preparing or writing.
Do you connect nature with music? I mean, are you like when you're in Bloomington, of course, down there, you've got those hills and all the beautiful nature. Did it inspire you? I mean, do you walk around and like get creative?
Yeah, I think that everything, when you're like a musician, anything can like really inspire you. And nature, if you're like in a nice, relaxed place with beautiful nature, of course, that always pushes you to do it. Mm-hmm. And like the concert you attended, like the Bossa Nova concert. Bossa Nova is a style based around nature. Mm-hmm. It talks about the water, it talks about the clean air before this was a topic even, talks about the ocean and our connection to Earth. And so I think definitely. You
mentioned you were also an arranger.
Yeah.
And that you do arranging for orchestras and so on and so forth. Are you a composer as well?
No, I don't consider myself a composer. Mm-hmm. I love arranging. At least until now, I'm like too critical of the things I've tried to write. But many times composers are arrangers first, and then they become composers later.
Yeah.
So
it's not off the table.
Not off the table.
Yeah.
Not off the table.
Maybe if you were to do something, what do you think it would be?
Probably things with the guitar. Writing for original music for guitar, and that's something that probably would be my first step towards that. It's not off the table. I have written things. I have even had like some people playing those things, but I'm like too critical of myself so far to do it.
What are some of tell me about some of the arranging projects that you've done.
So the bulk of my arranging in the last few years was arranging music for guitar ensembles. So creating a set of repertoire that didn't really exist until now. Guitar ensembles usually are formed by 12, 24, 32 guitarists. They're playing 4 parts. They're doubling everything. And I went off to one of my missions, research missions, since I started at IU, is to create a new set of repertoire for guitar ensembles. So I write for groups in a way that each guitarist will have their own independent part. So they're not doubling. So that's just a modern approach to guitar ensembles. And I also commission pieces in the same nature to composers to write for that group. So the past 7 years, I've been nonstop arranging for that type of formation. And I had pieces that have been performed, like arrangements performed around the world, and commissions that I did also performed all over the place using that new philosophy. So that's been the bulk of my arranging the past few years due to this research goal.
You know, I can't let you go without you telling me more about, describe the group that you work with at Christ Church Cathedral here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's a very nice. I've been collaborating with the CCC for almost a decade now, and growing this mission of the Coro Latinoamericano, which is to bring to the heart of Indianapolis Latin American music, singing in a very unique context, right? So the CCC has a service every Sunday at 1 p.m. and they have a choir and a full ensemble playing Latin American music in Spanish. We have also sang in Portuguese in the past, but mostly in Spanish. And this group is very unique as well around the country. I don't think there is a cathedral like the CCC that has a choir formed by volunteers and professional musicians of the highest caliber, singing that type of repertoire every week.
And where do all of the musicians come from? What are some of the countries represented?
So we have people from, of course, Mexico, Colombia, Guatemala, Honduras, Brazil. We had people from, what am I missing as well? Did I say Colombia already? I think I did. Bolivia. We've had people from Peru as well in the past.
Are you seeing any Venezuelans with this last wave of immigrants, or they're not really matriculated or settled right here?
We have not.
Okay.
At least in
Seems
the
like
choir.
it'd be a matter of time, don't you?
Yeah, yeah. At least in the choir, I don't have any members. But I have seen people in the congregation from Venezuela.
Do you feel as I do? Well, of course, I was born in this country, but I always felt that you know, the fact that there wasn't the diversity there is now. I always felt that I missed out on something as a result of that, the way I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But having said that, I've been here in Indianapolis since the early 70s, and I've seen the immigrant community grow in the last 10 years. And I believe we finally can call ourselves a world-class city because the fabric has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are brown, white, and black faces.
Yeah.
And I think it does my heart good. What does it do for you?
Absolutely. That certainly makes me happy and to be part of that, because the more diversity I believe we have, the richer the place becomes. Mm-hmm. And Indianapolis is certainly step by step becoming more and more diverse, and the opportunities that is, for artists in general, I think when you're in this type of environment, cool things start to happen, and a variety of music organizations and arts organizations around town, they're supporting really efforts that incorporate cultures from all over the world. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, that's also a very positive and desired outcome.
I agree. I want to know more about you, the person, and I know you have a family. Tell me about your family.
Yeah, I have
your
a
local family, your immediate family.
I have my wife and 2 dogs. We don't have kids. We have 2 Wheaton Terriers. They're lovely. And that's my immediate family here in the
And tell me
United
about your
States.
wife.
Yeah, she is.
What's her name?
Casey, and she works for the IU Foundation as well. And we met in Bloomington while we were both living there. And she also worked in the past for the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra. And now with the foundation working with the campuses around the state.
And you live in Indianapolis?
We do, yeah.
Whereabouts?
In the Bates Hendricks area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. 2 chicks and a hammer.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, that's very, the changes started in the neighborhood with that TV show.
What's that neighborhood like?
It's a great neighborhood. It has changed a lot. When I first moved there, you'd see a lot of police activity. But now you see babies running around. So it's a good sign of change there. Amazing families that have moved there. A lot of musicians, actually.
Oh, really?
Also moved there. And it really changed. Like,
well, the nearby Fountain Square and, that area artists have always been drawn to those areas. But of course, many consider it a bad word, gentrification.
Yeah.
Has its good and its bad points, as you know. And unfortunately, a lot of the artists who live in that area can't afford the rent. And so, but in any case, that's a whole other podcast. I'll have to get into sometime. But, how do you like Indianapolis? Tell me. Yeah.
I really like Indy. It's, I feel that I'm lucky that I'm like in Bloomington and Indianapolis, 2 amazing
the best of 2
places.
worlds, really.
Yeah. Because Indianapolis, so much to see and do here in Indy. The contact also with other musicians around town, musicians from the orchestra, for example, from the ISO, musicians from the symphonic choir, and all other organizations that here have Butler as well, that have colleagues that we collaborate with there. And in Bloomington, of course, the IU Jacob School of Music.
And how do you like that new leg of 69, by the way?
It made my life a little bit easier, but enduring the commutes during the process was quite hard.
Oh, really? Okay.
I think the governor should send me a check because all the hours that we had to spend, in construction zones was. But now it's much better. I believe that when it's completely done, it's going to be so much easier to commute between Bloomington and Indy.
Okay, it looks like we're going to wrap this up, but please tell me, do you think, why should young people play an instrument?
That's a great question, I think, especially nowadays. Especially nowadays, with so many devices you can carry with you to have fun. Like, you can play games on your phone, like kids love doing that. You can, of course, video games and social media, all the distractions that we have. It is, I believe, it's becoming more and more challenging for people to be able to sit down and focus on, like, playing an instrument, for example, an activity that is manual, and doesn't have a screen. Although they're making guitars with some screens right now as well, where you can use electronics in it. So that's very appealing to the kids. But that's a different story. I believe that the connection with music, it's so natural. So no matter the instrument, music is part of being a human being. That's why we found percussion instruments and flutes in caves centuries and centuries and millennia ago. All the early organized civilizations we had, the Egyptians, the Greeks, they could cultivate music in a very special way. I think it's part of human expression, first of all, but also the enjoyment you get from, like, playing instruments. It's very unique because, as I mentioned before, you're producing something from scratch. You're giving a piece of wood and some string with some strings on the top, and you can create a whole universe that will allow you to communicate with other human beings and for you to express your ideas.
What would your advice be to parents and teachers who see talent in kids, that they
I think most important thing is encouragement towards if you see talent, encourage that. However, it's very important not to push them too much sometimes, because I've seen a lot of cases where, you meet a kid that is extremely talented, but the parents push the kid so much to go to competitions and to practice 8 hours a day.
Complex.
Exactly. And then the kid burns out and not pursue music further. I have seen cases of extremely talented kids with facility to play and to be like very natural at it. Could be the best of the best, but because of so much pressure, they end up dropping out. So it's encouragement in a very positive way. Encourage exploration with the instrument and with music in general, not towards the goal of the parents of making that the best of the best. No, encourage experimentation, encourage day-to-day, step-by-step growth in a way that is healthy, not unhealthy.
And words of wisdom from someone who benefited from parents and teachers who, from the very beginning, encouraged you to become Daniel Duarte.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm grateful for those.
Thank you for sharing your valuable time with me. I really appreciate getting to know you, and the fact that you're leading this whole generation of young musicians is very encouraging. It gives me a lot of hope, and many other people. So thank you for being with me today.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for all you do for the arts community here in the state of Indiana. It's a pleasure.
This podcast is just going to help me, widen the net.
Yes, it's a great thing. I'm very happy for you. Congratulations.
Again, thank you for being with me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who will take center stage on the podcast next? Your seat on the aisle with Tom Alvarez awaits. Follow Tom on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and make sure to visit tomalvarez.studio. Watch Tom every other Thursday on Lifestyle Live on Wish TV, and make sure to listen every week here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.